Welcome to another episode of a Talking Point podcast brought to you by Thomas.A Public Relations in partnership with Barbados Today. Season 2 is all about the business of entertainment. So Tracy, let's get to a talking point.
I'm Tracy Fowler, and today we're breaking down the economics behind the Caribbean entertainment from the high of crop over to the off-season silence. If this is a billion-dollar vibe, then why isn't it treated like a billion-dollar industry? Joining us is Economist Keisha Blades to unpack the true cost of treating culture like a moment instead of a movement. Hi, Keisha.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you for having me on today.
It's lovely to have you. I'm excited to talk to you about this. I'm excited to learn. I'm sure everyone is excited to know more and to just get into this discussion because we have a lot of thoughts and feelings around this. So let's just get to know you a little bit. Like, tell us what drew you to the study of economics of culture and entertainment in the Caribbean.
So, crop over is near and dear to my heart. So let's just start there. From the time I was young, seeing my mother getting ready, putting on her costume for Kadooment Day, and then, when I got a little bit older, me putting on my costume for Kitty's Kadooment, to then when I got a lot older, going to pick out a costume at a band launch and, being in the gym, getting ready for this costume and, also going to the different events. And it really is truly one of my favorite times of the year outside of Christmas. And so from that standpoint, it is a season that I love. But then I remember during COVID, it might have been like the second year of COVID, whichever year, when we didn't have the festival.
Yeah.
It was very disappointing. But then I also started to think of it from an economic standpoint. I started to think of, who are the major players in the festival who would be really losing out by not having having the festival going on because of the pandemic. And then that sparked my interest, and I decided to write an article about the true meaning and value of crop over. So in writing this article, I realized that I couldn't really find any data to like really back the points that I was trying to make in terms of the value that crop over adds to our economy. And I realized that there was a gap. And I started to write more articles, and I realized that this gap was really happening because we weren't measuring it. And the reason why we weren't measuring the true value was because there was no data available. So I think that's what really drew me into, um, wanting to pay more attention to the value that culture and certainly crop over and the entertainment industry adds to our economy. And yeah, so that's how we got here.
So you told us what drew you to the study of economics and the economics of culture and your love for crop over and what took you on this path. But for some of us listening, we may want to know, why does this even matter? Why does this conversation around economics and culture even matter? Break that one down for us.
So it matters because we talk about crop over and how it's a big money earner and it contributes to the economy, but it's been hard to find out how much it contributes to the economy, how much the creative and the cultural sector contributes to the economy. And one of the main reasons behind this is because it's not being measured. And it's not being measured because the data is not being captured, or before it wasn't being captured consistently for us to be able to measure. If we don't know what contribution they're making, it's going to be very hard to justify coming up with policies that support the sector. So take, for instance, and we would have experienced this firsthand during COVID, during the pandemic, when a lot of these persons in the industry would have been out of work because obviously we did not have a festival.
Right.
If we had policies in place that were able to support them more during that time when they were making little to no money, that could have helped them maybe smooth out that period when the festival wasn't happening. But again, if we don't have any data to measure, it's going to be really hard when it comes to making policy decisions that help them, that support these creatives. So I think that is one of the main reasons why we like to capture data. We like to know what is the contribution being made towards our economy, the contribution that they're making towards GDP or gross domestic product, if you want to get all into the terms.
So I am a creative, or I am a promoter, or I am a private promoter. Someone might be thinking, well, the data that is captured, streams for music being played online, airplay for music being played and it's recorded by CostCap, um, costume purchases, ticket purchases, drinks purchases, food purchases. We could go on. But what else am I trying to capture? What are all the data points that are incredibly important when you talk about capture the data?
So, for instance, take maybe a food vendor or a caterer.
Mhm.
Obviously, they're going to employ a certain amount of persons to work with them, say for an event. It would be important for us to know what is the job creation there. Like, how
Right.
many jobs are you creating? And then multiply that by how many caterers or how many security teams. It would be nice to know, well, the festival creates how much ever um, number of jobs throughout that season. So we think, well, maybe we could add or lend some more support towards this sector or
Mhm.
towards these players within the festival in terms of, say, maybe a makeup artist who's just maybe collecting cash. Like, we cannot see what their contribution to the festival is if it's not being captured, if they're still within this informal environment.
That is actually really good to know. So can you create one example? Could choose anyone. We could choose the makeup artist, because the makeup artist has to probably buy extra product for the
Hmm.
season coming up, and he or she is going to have a certain amount of customers, increasing customers. Maybe she's going to hire an assistant makeup artist to help her out, especially when we're getting closer to like end of July. Break that down just so maybe a creative is listening, maybe a makeup artist is listening to so she or he can write down what are the main things that I need to record when it comes to my business, just so someone can have an example.
So first of all, I would say capturing the amount of persons that you see, customers, clients that you see,
Mm-hmm.
for certain, your money that you bring in, your expenses, making sure that you have all of that documented. Again, because you want to think long term.
Yeah.
So say your business starts to grow and you want to maybe open a physical location, but you don't have the financing for it,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to approach a financial institution to have access to this financing. If you're not capturing this data, they're probably not going to take you seriously.
Love that. Okay. Okay, we are on a roll. The stage has been set for this episode. So, how would you describe the economic role of crop over and similar festivals in the Caribbean's GDP?
So right now, in terms of crop over, certainly is an ecosystem. So is an ecosystem of a lot of people who contribute to the economy. Again, it goes from taxi drivers who would see an uptick in their demand for transportation needs. You would
Yeah.
see an uptick in restaurant reservations. People are out, people are social, people are eating more. It can go from lighting crew, digital creators, marketing people. All of these people are part of this ecosystem, which is great. But
Mm-hmm.
when we think about the role, it's very short-lived. Like they see this uptick for about a few weeks in the year. And
Mm-hmm.
again, because we're not really capturing or we're not really measuring, it's very hard to determine the value that these people play, the role that they play in
Mm-hmm.
adding to our GDP.
Right. Right. So currently, because I read a stat saying that the festival definitely increases the GDP. I feel like the last figure that I saw, maybe it was 2023, that it increased it by 4%. And clearly, there's major value in that. So imagine if you
Oh,
were capturing
definitely.
the data, if you were
Exactly.
capturing all the numbers and seeing what is really happening, that number might be a little different.
It might be different. And like there's a lot of potential there to grow. But again, if you're not measuring, it's going to be hard to go to an investor to say, you know, how do you feel about investing in the sector in crop over? There's this potential, but they're not going to be too inclined to invest money in something that they can't justify
Mhm.
if we're not measuring.
Right, right. Of
You know,
course,
so
of course.
so the role is major, but again, it's short-lived.
Yeah. So, in comparison to other Caribbean or global festivals like Trinidad Carnival, Notting Hill, where do we lag in terms of economic structure and measurement? I know we talked about data capture, but where else do we lag, in your opinion?
So when I was writing that first article on the true value of crop over, when I was looking up Notting Hill, I realized that they often do a lot of research. They do a lot of research in terms of the economic impact that Notting Hill brings to the economy. And I think that
Yes.
that's where we lag a lot.
Mhm.
I know they're trying to change that. No, they're trying to capture more stats here, but I realized that Notting Hill Carnival has a lot because I was actually able to find a lot of articles, a lot of stats behind Notting Hill Carnival.
Yeah.
With Trinidad Carnival, I would say I feel like their major players are able to see work outside of Trinidad Carnival. I feel like
Yes.
band leaders are able to now export their products to other carnivals.
Mhm.
I find that artists are able to find work seemingly consistently outside of Trinidad Carnival. So it's almost like they are able to generate income and generate revenue throughout the year.
Mhm.
Whereas for us, I feel like it is very seasonal, very
Right.
fragmented.
Yeah, I was doing some research on Notting Hill myself, and one of the things that struck me is that they very actively give back to the Caribbean community in that area. So the Caribbean
Yes.
community there is sustained and they're always thriving. So the profits that they make from the carnival go right back into the community, and as part of their plan. It's something they've been doing for years,
So
which
it's
I didn't
almost
even
like
know.
they're continuing to fuel the carnival.
Exactly.
You're
Exactly.
offering that support, so there
Yeah.
is growth is going to happen, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. In researching Trinidad Carnival, I learned that the government pumps a lot of money into their carnival because it's a big deal for them. Obviously, it's a major investment, but
Hmm.
it was stated that they're trying to manage profit outflow because of how their events, I guess, travel all across the world, and they're trying
Yeah,
to like, I guess, capture that data and capture those numbers to see that how do they benefit from that as well. Of course, they benefit because people know, okay, they know Trinidad, they know the name Trinidad, they know Trinidad Carnival. So for them, marketing, advertising, awareness is there.
it's
But
there.
from a
Yeah.
profit perspective, how do they how do they benefit from that? So it's just interesting to see the different models at work and what the different countries are trying to manage based on that.
And and you can see it because they now are including Trinidad Carnival in their long-term economic strategy.
Yes, yes,
See, there's a difference between that and just focusing on, 2 months out of the year. You got to
it's
think
true.
long term
Yep, yep.
in order for it to grow. Yeah.
So important. So, what do you think needs to shift culturally, financially, and structurally to move entertainment from a seasonal celebration to year-round business?
So culturally, again, I think we need to shift away from thinking of it as just a cultural event from an economic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
As an export, thinking about it long term, thinking about offering support, that support, whether it be from government, whether it be from the private sector. So in terms of the private sector, I realize that there is a gap between creatives and financial institutions,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to funding and financing. A lot of creatives probably don't capture or keep documents or records of their streams of revenue. And I think that is where the disconnect comes between them and financial institutions in terms of if they're trying to, like get a loan.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have that documentation, financial institutions are going to be less likely to lend to them. But I think there's this gap because the financial institutions probably don't understand the nuances that come with the creative industry. So I think
Right.
that there needs to be a gap filled where maybe we offer financial literacy workshops to help them kind of, come up with business plans, figure out how to um, keep their financial documents, up to scratch.
Yeah.
Um, Certainly putting them in a position where they can have access to financing, funding, credit. Um, when it comes to government, maybe providing a little bit more tax incentives. For example, maybe reducing duties on entertainment equipment. In terms of the private sector, maybe investing more in like recording studios, performance locations, and that kind of thing. In terms of financing, like I said, bridging that gap between creatives and financial institutions, because again, they're going to be a little bit different than a small business. Yeah.
That's
Um,
right.
Also, I think we need to start looking at them as legitimate businesses and not
Mm-hmm.
just as people with side hustles or people with hobbies. Look at them as legitimate entrepreneurs. Pay them, pay them accordingly, pay them on time. Start to create relationships again between creatives and the private sector, whether it's investing in them as brand ambassadors, um, investing in workshops that help them where it comes to business development,
Yeah.
helping them map out business plans so that we can start thinking more long term,
Yeah.
less seasonal.
Yes. Agreed. And those workshops that you talk about, I've been in a lot of conversations about this, but I think they need to be more ongoing than just a workshop, especially when it comes to the creatives. Because when you do the 1 day workshop or the 2 day workshop
Yeah.
and you leave, you don't have any support after that. Or you're told that there's support, but because there's no particular structure, um,
Yes. There's no
to go
structure.
back to, yeah, to
Yeah.
touch base with. Because one can say, yeah, you can just call us whenever you need, but if the actual program is not set up in a way that they have access to this thing that they can go back to and check in, um, you're just gonna forget about it. You're just gonna go back to what you know. But I think that's part of artist development. Like you need an artist development ongoing program almost all throughout the
Yes.
year that
Throughout the
includes
year.
financial literacy, that includes how to make my creative business an actual hardcore business.
Business.
How do I do
Yes.
my taxes? How do I charge even? Some creatives are not quite sure how to charge for a gig or performance. So all of those things I think should be included in what you're talking about, but also included within artist development, which I think we'll be talking about in a later episode as well. So I fully agree with you.
And something else that came to mind is, and this is along the lines of, seeing them as legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start to look at, you know, making sure that people who are interested in these areas from secondary school into university, into then going into these professional careers, can
That's
we
good.
create these streams where we align them in this area?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if somebody in secondary school is interested in, I don't know, musical engineering, I don't know what you would call it, but can we
Sound
have
engineering. Mm-hmm.
sound engineering, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can we create, these education opportunities where the trajectory is clear?
Yeah, yeah,
And again, it's not being treated as a side gig or a hobby. It's actual legitimate work,
correct. We have good
because
sound engineers in Barbados. They
yeah,
work at a ton of gigs. They make sure the sound is right on stage, and they work on all
exactly.
kinds of gigs, big ones, small ones. It could be lectures. It could be a huge show like Tipsy, and you need a sound engineer. That's very important.
Exactly.
You're
Like
right.
we need to start thinking about building the human capital to support these events, to support the sector, to
Mm-hmm.
support creatives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, I think this goes back to long-term planning and not just
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it in the short term.
The structure and the framework needs to change specifically for this part of the industry. Something needs to be more streamlined somewhere. So there's more, so it feels more like an industry actually, and not as
Exactly.
fragmented as it is. Like right now I'm in LA. And when I think about the music industry, as crazy as the music industry is, and it may not have unions like how the film industry has unions and all of that,
Hmm.
there are still labels, publishing houses, managers. I know we have managers home, but there's a particular order to things. Booking agents receive this much a percentage. Tour managers receive this much a percentage. Managers receive a range of this much. Like there's a particular order and business structure to the industry here that is a little less chaotic or a little less fragmented.
Hmm.
I think we've come a long way. We've seen a couple good managers. We have booking agents, and I think our way of doing all of these things will be different. We cannot mimic the industry here
Yeah.
because our how things work at home, how things work in the region itself is different. So we have to almost create our own framework to make our industry flourish.
Yes, certainly. And I think that that is what is was missing: structure, a framework to build an industry, as you said, rather
Mhm.
than just, you know, vibes and that occur during a peak season. I also
Exactly.
think that perhaps if we were to maybe, like, imagine if we directed resources towards the entertainment industry similar to how we direct resources towards, say, tourism.
Hmm.
Like, think about the growth potential there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But again, we need to be
Keep
able
taking
to
us on that
measure it.
journey. Develop our
Again,
imagination, Keisha. Tell us more.
yeah, I just feel like the growth potential could be there and we could really see the export value of the entertainment industry.
Agreed. Agreed. But yes, they need the support to do it because having your 9 to 5 job, which you should have to a point if you are
Mhm,
looking to at some point become a full-time artist, but having that and doing your music on the side,
mhm,
it becomes hard. One, two, need a team. They
mhm.
may have to pay the team.
Yes.
You need to get paid a certain amount of money for your gigs. Streams, the money from streaming when it comes to soca music isn't as amazing. So they have to find creative ways to make money. Some people invest in side ventures like fitness programs or selling particular products that are branded with their name and their
Yeah,
vibe and their movement for their fan bases. But as like we talked about, is encouraging artists to think beyond their art and becoming a full brand, a full
a
business.
full
I
brand,
actually
yes.
heard Chloe Bailey, and I know she's not singing soca and she's not Caribbean, but she said it in an interview, and I thought it was great because she's young. And she said, music is just the platform. Music doesn't make me money. Like, I know y'all like listening to my music and all that, and that's cool. This is just the
Mhm.
platform. I have to now build my business off this platform. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad she gets this and understands this at her age. Like, that's fantastic. Because she's like, that's what's going to keep me going long term.
Yes.
Rihanna, hello.
Exactly.
But we have to have a different, it's going to be slightly different for us in the Caribbean because of population, smaller, and how we look at business as an artist, and how we create I guess, develop our business based on location will
Hmm.
have to be slightly nuanced.
And I'm glad you mentioned that about Chloe because gone are the days where it was just simply about putting music out. Like we are in the world of social media now. So like she rightfully said, it's not just about putting music out, it's about creating a
Mm-hmm.
brand. So
Mm-hmm.
nowadays it's about, yes, putting music out, but then people are now interested in you as an artist and your lifestyle. So
Yeah.
yes, we want to see and we want to hear your music, but now people want to see what's what's like your day to day like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you going to the gym? What, foods do you like to eat? Where do you like to eat?
Mm-hmm.
So this now brings in content creators.
Mm-hmm.
So they
That's true.
now are legitimate entrepreneurs because now they feed into this by helping these artists create a brand.
Mm-hmm.
So you see
Mm-hmm.
how it is a whole ecosystem that I
Yeah.
guess would have changed, from years ago to now. And there is definitely the growth potential for each and every one of them. But again, we need to create the structure.
Yeah.
We need to create formality so that they are included, so that are included in long-term economic strategy, in long-term economic plans as it relates to the sector, as it relates to um, support that's offered to them, access to
Mm-hmm.
financing, access to credit, um, access to grants, just so that we can really see that growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in light of what you just said, I do know that the NCF has been very active over the last few years in providing and making it very accessible to get grants for creative projects in all aspects, film, in music projects, video projects, name it. They have been definitely very active in that, which is awesome. But what is the role of the private sector in the growth of our festival, in developing the formality and the framework that you speak of? We know that Flow is investing. We know that Republic Bank has been investing over the years in crop over. But what do you think is the overall role of the private sector?
First of all, I think that is perception. So I think we need to stop looking at it as sponsorship for the season and maybe for the private sector to more look at it as year-round investment. Yeah. I would also like to add more of a collaboration between the public and the private sector. So where the public sector lays the foundation and the structure for the festival, but then the private sector now adds its support behind the development, whether it's increasing the resources that we direct towards the festival and the creative and cultural industry, um, as it relates to investment, access to financing, access to certainly knowledge, education, again, bridging that gap between creatives and the private sector. I
Yeah.
think that is also key in terms of, developing a blueprint for the Crop Over Festival.
So, as you know, this is all about the business of entertainment. And as we're discussing the economy, and we're so focused on crop over right now, the entertainment industry is one huge, massive thing, right? So, we have artists that don't sing soca music, they're singing all
Mhm.
kinds of other genres outside of that, performing all over the island. We have the reggae festival, we have, gosh, all kinds of things happening. Mahalia's Corner, all kinds of things happening all across the year that make up this big entertainment industry. What are your thoughts around, I guess, formalizing um, a structure or framework for the entire industry and making that a machine that is constantly running where everyone is they're living, artists can live comfortably off of this entertainment industry. People who work in sound, stages, all of these different parts of the entertainment industry can work comfortably and function all throughout the year. What do we need to see, or in your mind, what do we need to see to make that function smoother and like a well-oiled machine?
Actually, I like that you touched on this, and I love that we now have so much more going on throughout the year outside of crop over. I love that we have all of these different music festivals now being added to the calendar. And I think that's exactly what we have to have, like an actual calendar for the
Yeah,
entire year where we know that we can expect to have this festival, say at the beginning of the year, this one during Easter. And it's not just centered around June, July, August,
yeah,
and I would also go as far as to say, I think we should have even now going into the culinary side, we should maybe have more food festivals because
hmm
we didn't really speak on the culinary arts, but when we look at how big the Food and Rum Festival is, I feel like we
yes,
we have the space to maybe have a few more of those added to our yearly calendar as well.
agreed.
And I one thing I would love to see come back, Jazz Festival.
Oh,
I
oh, I
think
just got
that is
goosebumps.
one, yeah, I think that that is one that really needs to come back. When I look at how
So good.
big like St. Lucia's Jazz Festival has gone and
Hmm
how like they have built it into, I think it's about maybe a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel like we are missing out. I feel like
hmm
there's a space to have that added to our calendar of yearly events.
Correct.
And I think
Correct.
that this way you keep people engaged, you keep people employed, and you keep growing the entertainment industry.
hmm So art festivals,
Art
jazz
festivals,
festivals,
jazz
film
festival,
festivals,
film festivals.
a
Yes,
week of theater. What else do
yes.
we need? Fashion festivals.
Fashion, yes,
Hmm
definitely.
hmm
So that all creatives have the opportunity throughout the year
Yeah.
to thrive.
Yeah. We need
That's
it.
that's that's what I would love to see.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I just want to mention something else. And we didn't bring it up because this has nothing to do with crop over or anything like that. But this conversation made me think about what the government in Korea has done for K-pop music, which has taken the world by storm. And
Hmm.
just in Korea alone, they've realized that it has increased the GDP significantly. I wish I had the number right here to tell you because it is a crazy number. But the government was so wowed by it that they pump so much money into the
Yeah,
K-pop industry that
yeah.
now everyone wants to get on a K-pop song. Artists from all over the world like, yeah, I wanna get into K-pop because that's where the money's at. And Korea is seeing the benefits of pumping into their entertainment industry.
And
And
that's what I
while
would love to
every industry
see.
exactly. So while every country is different, when you look at the countries where there is major investment in their entertainment industry, there is a great benefit.
Yes. And that is what I would love, 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 love to see. That we
Mhm.
could get to that point where we see the true value and the true contribution that the industry makes towards the economy, and we direct resources towards it that helps it just grow and take
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need that.
And I think it's very, very possible. That's the
Hmm
honest truth. And I think that when we look at how volatile things are now, with all the uncertainty that's happening,
Yeah,
I think we need to find other streams of revenue And I think that this is one that is untapped.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, tourism is our major earner, but I think that this is one that is untapped. And I would love to see the day when we could really tap into its true potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be an exciting time. Guys, this is a reminder not to underestimate the orange economy. And Keisha, this was such a enriching conversation. It was insightful. It was educational, even for me. I don't play in the finance space, but so I like to learn as I'm talking to people like yourself. And we, if someone wanted to find you to read your articles, to know more about what you have to say as a thought leader right now, and where can they find you?
So they can find me on Instagram at According to Busy. That is where, well, you'll be able to find the link to my website, Train and Thought. So that's where I post my articles. You can also find my articles in Advomag. That's also on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was definitely a pleasure to be here and to share these thoughts with you. Definitely on, something that is near and dear to my heart.
For sure, of course, of course. Well, Keisha helped us to reframe entertainment. It's not just a vibe, but it's a very viable industry. Be sure to follow Barbados Today, Thomas.APR on Instagram. Visit thomasapr.com and follow the hashtag A Talking Point Podcast.
Thanks, Tracy. This episode of A Talking Point podcast was brought to you by Thomas.A Public Relations in partnership with Barbados Today. Remember that new episodes drop every Tuesday right here on Barbados Today's YouTube channel, and then on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Until next time, this has been A Talking Point podcast.